arriving at this minimum wage would have been was a tripartite discussion, namely private sector, government, and unions. We all understand as workers and as citizens as a whole of the region, Barbados in particular, and the region generally, that the constant increase in the cost of living. And therefore, especially for the workers at the bottom, who are not represented by trade unions, they will see the importance of trade unions because trade unions are always constantly engaged in what we call across-the-board negotiations to try to mitigate the impact of cost of living. So these workers who traditionally do not fall within the unionized environment would now be looking forward to receiving an increase on their salaries. Now the goal should be, at some stage, not just in Barbados, but right through the region, to move to not a minimum wage, but a living wage. A living wage would address the aspect of being able to access basic needs, healthcare, your foodstuff, living conditions, and in particular, our retirees. Because many times our retirees retire into poverty. And a number of these workers retire without what we call health insurance, retire without pension. We know that there will be the national insurance. That itself would be woefully inadequate. So these things are important, that it must be commended. In Grenada in particular, so for instance, I'm sure the region is something that must be encouraged. In Grenada in January of 2024, there was a minimum wage increase, which was also very much welcome. So it is something that we need to move through the region to address. And as I said, move beyond just a minimum wage, but what we call a living wage. Minimum wage sets the minimum standard as to, or the lowest that someone ought to be paid. Although you will also find that there are employers who even break the law and pay people below the minimum wage. So that apart from passing minimum wage, the aspect of enforcement through the Ministry of Labour will be crucially important to ensure that these minimum standards are upkept. But the aspect of salary negotiations to get a more living wage is a constant battle and a constant struggle throughout the region. More and more millionaires have been created in this period of global crisis. But the gap between the haves and the have-nots are widening. The issue is not one of scarce resources. The issue is the failure to distribute properly our resources. It's not just the creation of wealth, but it's the distribution in an unfair manner of the wealth distribution. There's enough going around. There's enough going around for all of us, every one of us in society, to live a comfortable standard of living. But what we are seeing is that very few people are enjoying the cream of the crop, while the vast majority continues to have to struggle. So we need to see a more even distribution of the wealth created. The wealth is created by labor. Labor is the only aspect that changes the value. Capital by itself can't do anything. Land by itself can't do anything. But it is our labor, the labor of the workers, that are able to bring value to that which has been done. And therefore we ought to be rewarded for this.